Is there anyone you can get to be like a de facto member who doesn't really do much? To add some names, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can get with several of them.
If you could add some people, it would stop it being something that someone would go back and take a look at.
Right. Okay.
People who are willing to just say, "Oh yeah, okay, Laney's right,"
Okay.
which is how most PLCs work anyway, in reality.
Pretty much, yeah.
Ooh, I think I just recorded that. I shouldn't have said that. So you had a good week?
Yeah, I have. We just got it started with our, I'm trying to get that skip started because we've just been swamped with other stuff at our school. So I'm just trying to get that started. I'm a little behind, so I will have it done by the end of next week.
I'm going to talk a little bit about it tonight. I can't post I'm not supposed to post a rubric, or not a rubric, an outline for it, but I've got one that I've used before, and I thought I'd talk our way through it tonight. So hopefully that would be of use.
Oh, that would be helpful, yeah.
Yeah, you're not alone, so don't feel alone in the world just starting to skip. But I do think we have everybody through OMA yet, or just about everybody, which is a good feeling.
Yeah, the OMA wasn't too bad. It was actually enjoyable, believe it or not.
Good. Well, the skip and the cape, you keep going back and pulling things that you've done before. I mean, it's not a total cut and paste. SIAP is just about cut and paste as long as you can do the art of putting it together again, you know, without just obvious lack of nuance between the sections. But yeah, you'll find that you'll think, I've done this before, and you're right. So don't not go back and pull what you've done. If you know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So work smarter, not harder.
Yes, definitely. Good term. Wish I'd thought of it. Where are you again?
I'm in Asheville at Reynolds Middle School.
Is it cold?
60. Windy. The wind's what's getting us.
Yeah. Asheville's not a real cold place, is it?
Not usually. My parents are in Lenore, right outside of Hickory.
Uh-huh.
And it's colder there sometimes than it is here.
Yeah, it's hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're getting more and more people checking in. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Had a good week. Hope all our case studies are ready to go. I'm looking forward to this.
Let me pull mine up.
As usual, it's hard to say what's right or wrong in these case studies. Makes it very worth discussing.
Mm-mm. No.
Anybody have any exciting stories to tell from their week?
I had a student go into a grand mal seizure in my room last Thursday.
Oh, boy.
Well, that was a tough one.
That's absolutely terrifying, yeah. I have a cousin that has those, and it's just awful. Got about 3 more minutes, everybody. Like I said, anybody else got a good story? I don't know if grand mal seizure counts as a good story. It's definitely an experience.
Mm-mm.
It's Lynette's little one.
Who has a little one? Oh,
Lynette does, yeah.
Hi.
Lynette is getting so big.
I know.
and think how smart he'll be after attending class. I mean, he's working on his master's already. How impressive. Must be a genius, right?
Yes, of course.
Of course.
Oh, I got some good news. Well, I don't know if it's good news, but I did speak with the HR about an AP position.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah, so I just have to apply.
Oh, you have to apply.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And they told you it was a slam dunk?
No, but I mean, it'll get my name out there.
Yeah. Okay. Since you've got this opportunity, let me tell you in advance about on this Zoom lesson, if you go and look for the interview questions on the
Okay.
left-hand side, those are all interview questions for prospective administrators. And there's like 150 of them there.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So to give you a nice template from just to get your head straight.
Okay.
Answer going into your interview.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they're interview questions for admin jobs, not for teaching jobs.
Okay.
Okay. One more minute, we give everybody a chance to get here. See, everybody just about is finished up with their OMA. Thank goodness.
Oh yes. Oof.
ready to go with Skip. And we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. Okay, it's 7 o'clock according to my clock, so let's get started. We'll open up with. Can you see that? No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, let me try this. Can you see it now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, then let's look at what we're supposed to be doing here in March, week 9. It's all about staff selection, contracts, evaluation of the law, review your HR website for local LEAs, teachers' rights, managing human resources, et cetera, et cetera. You were supposed to interview an administrator this week about HR practices and about employee assistance compensation plans and benefits. And we'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, but before that, I'd like to touch on a skip. Can you see that? You can't, can you?
Mm-mm.
Okay, let me start over again. Good Lord. Someday I'm going to learn how to work this, and then I'll be dangerous. Got it. Got it all on top of it. Now, can you see the skip outline?
Yes.
Okay, great. Made some notes on things I seen come up as issues along the way. I thought I'd just alert you to them. Make sure you have a team. Laney and I were earlier talking about sometimes it can be hard to get a team together at this point. Just get some people to work with you and you'll be fine. Make sure they're willing to have their name associated with your work. Then in the needs assessment is the start, the organizational analysis. What you'll find from here on out is that you'll look at this thing, you'll look at the question, you'll look at your rubric, and you'll think, I did this before. And it's a lot of it you have. So go back to your old work, lift out the parts that matter, put them in place, and then write new segues as you move from place to place. You can't just cut and paste; it won't work. And a lot of this one in the CAPE, you still have to write a lot of it fresh. But there'll be things that are things that you've done before, so don't be afraid to use them again. Okay. In your organizational analysis, they talk about that you're going to end up with 3 parts to your plan, and one is going to be short-term goals. You're bringing parents, bringing the community into your school. And that should concentrate on social media type stuff. You also have long-term goals where you're looking to get parents on campus or in some kind of setting where they learn to work with their kids or learn more about their kids so they can help do better. And then finally, you'll have a school leadership goal that will come out of the big 5 that you did way back in, I remember, APTEL, empowerment, time management, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll have at least one of those for your school leadership team to be. Okay? Now, I was told I can't send this out, so I'm just showing it to you for your consideration. When you get to resource identification, one of the big differences between being an administrator and being a teacher is, as a teacher, you go into the staff room and you gripe about not buying stuff. As an administrator, you actually have to know what you can and can't buy and how much it's going to cost and where you're going to get the money from. So do that as much as you can for this. You may not have access to all the fiscal information, but you'll have access to some. And whatever it is, you need to have approximate cost for whatever you're going to do and ways that you might get that money together. Then you'll also have human resources and how you change the use of time for people that work with you. Skip 3 then is the marketing plan. That'll have the 3 goals that I expressed earlier, the short term, the long term, and the leadership goals. Be sure you have strengths of the current program, because you all do good stuff, and anything that you might find that you could do better to bring people in. You know, what opportunities are there for parents now, and what opportunities to make decisions now, and what opportunities just to be involved in now. Timeline should be pretty precise. You've all done a bunch of graphic organizers throughout the work for MELS certification, so you're in good shape with all that. You know how to do that. Okay. Then when you do the feedback component, evaluation and reflection, that means actually evaluate and reflect, not just kiss it off. Make sure that you've got that you have connections to student achievement as well. And then skip 4 is a straight up reflection on the competencies. You need 12 of them, no less. 12, please. I send way too many of those back with 9, 10, and 11. And you reflect what you did, how you showed competency in what you did in your internship, in your coursework, and in your job each day. And make a good paragraph out of each one of those competencies that you reflect on. Okay? Any questions? Okay. Maybe you can use that on the video that will be made with this. Okay.
Where is this outline located on our shell?
It's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't hand it out, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So that brings us to the best part of the night, which are the discussions. Did anybody get to talk to admin people about hiring, etc.? Anything particularly exciting?
I did not get to talk to them about the hiring process, but I did get to sit in on the interview.
Oh, okay. And how was that?
Interesting, because I had to ask most of the questions.
Did you have them prepared in advance?
Well, they were given to me when I got to the school, and the questions were already prepared. So I just had to ask them, write down what was stated, and then after that, the responses I had to give to the principal.
Now, does everybody know why she was given a sheet with the questions already established?
So that all the questions were appropriate and that they would get the needed information for that specific position.
Right. And if I apply for the same job and find out that she got better questions than me, I can't complain or sue. So you want your questions to be consistent across your candidates, and that's why people write up their own. However, people write up terrible questions, in my opinion, so let me give you my advice, which you can use or not. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So whatever you can learn about what someone did in the past and how that'll best predict their future is to your benefit. If I ask any of you how to conduct a needs assessment, Well, you've all done that. You did it in school. You could run through exactly what's needed to do a needs assessment. Now, do you believe that needs assessments are necessary? Do you put them into practice so that every time you have a new decision to make, you make a needs assessment? I don't know. I need to come up with a question that finds out what you do, what you've done in the past, that will predict best how you're going to fit at my school. I had a mentor who did a whole dissertation on what he said was he discovered was the best single question to ask prospective teachers, and that was to ask them to tell you about their favorite teacher growing up. Now, why would you ask that?
Because then they can show what they think a good teacher is or what they value in that position.
Yep. Exactly.
What
Because
motivates them to be similar?
yep. Think about your favorite teacher growing up. Now, most of you were probably good students, probably all of you. Good students, well behaved, you're supposed to do, follow directions, and adore at least one teacher on the way up. And I bet you she still comes, or no, it's a she, it's not a he. I bet she still pops into your brain every now and then while you're teaching. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay. So the best predictor I could find for you, if you were joining my staff, for you to tell me about this teacher, wondering what in the world is he asking me about that for? But I'm in the process of finding out more than what I would have asked if I asked about your theory of education or how would you best teach reading to your students. Those things are always done in the directive and are relearned every 4 or 5 years anyways, you all know. So remember those questions. Remember the importance of assessing past behavior for future behavior. Did anyone have a non-centralized hiring process? By that I mean, do all of you, is the main hiring part done at the district level, and then the schools follow up on that, or is that work in a district where you actually do the whole process in the school?
Well, we do the process in the school.
From the
And it's
beginning?
like a team. Yeah, it's a team that does the interview and asks several questions. I know when I've done it that you had you looked over the questions before you went into the interview. You chose which ones you were going to ask, and you asked that person. You take notes, and after that person, before that person leaves, they walk around the school to see the environment, the atmosphere of the school, and then we meet together as a team again to debrief on the interview.
We do something very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are the candidates cleared by your district office before you interview them, or do you find them yourself?
No, the school interviews, and then if they decide on that person, they take it to the board, and the board will, they'll submit their name to the board.
Okay.
Our school contacts central office and pulls the applications that are on file and for that specific position. And then, and I know that my principal pointed out that they have to post the position, because sometimes, if you have a student teacher and you're going to hire that student teacher, the job still has to be posted. She did make
not tell anybody you plan to
say
hire
that
them, no matter what.
when I was talking to her about it. Yeah.
My school
Yeah.
district kind of does both, because sometimes there's like too many teachers at one school, so they get surplus, and then those people just come in. They don't go through the same hiring process as everyone else, but you have to apply with the county first before you do your interviews.
Because I used to get lists of people who were eligible, and human resources, the district human resources did the background checks. Because as individual schools, we weren't prepared for that. But then we competed for candidates within the district. That could be vicious at times. Sometimes it depended if you'd offered somebody something 5 or 10 minutes before someone else had, and then you had to fight it out to see who got to keep the person. Not easy work. Probably the most important work you'll do as a principal. Because after all, you don't teach anybody, right? As principal, you don't do anything in the classroom hardly at all. So the people you choose to run those classrooms are the most important people in the school, and actually your number one job. Any other statements about hiring, firing?
I was able to sit in on a process. Our science teacher, he's on a leave of absence until the end of year. So unfortunately, the principal explained to me that he can't hire anyone because since it's a leave of absence, it's not an opening.
Yep.
What they decided to do was to disperse all of his kids into all of the other science rooms. So now most of the science teachers have like 6 or 7 more kids each block.
Yep.
Because they didn't want to put a substitute in there for the rest of the year and then the kids not do well on their end of the grade test. So it was a hard situation, but at the end, he said that he had to make that decision that was best for the kids based on the situation that happened.
So what do you think? Did you do the right thing, everybody?
Yeah, I think it was the right thing. I mean, it's hard. I was one of the teachers that were kind of affected by it. It's hard because you have more students in your classroom and it kind of changes your dynamics. But at the end of the day, those kids wouldn't have learned anything if they had a long-term sub. So I understand.
My school, we had a similar situation where a teacher went on a leave of absence for this whole school year. And so what my principal did was hire she's a science teacher, so he hired a retired science teacher to be her interim substitute. So the kids are still going to science class like they would. The only issue is that she can't work on Fridays because then she would get too many hours through the week. So every Friday there's a different substitute that comes in and just kind of picks up that slack.
I had a 7th grade math teacher who had narcolepsy. I mean, he would just flop down in front of the class and go to sleep. 2.5 years he stayed on my teacher role, and I had to fill things with subs and interims and this, that, and the other, and couldn't fulfill the position because we couldn't dismiss him, and his position was still okay. He fell under the 504 strictures for jobs. So it can be vicious, and you've heard the 2 ways of basically trying to deal with it. One is to cut everybody out, and everybody ends up with a bunch enough students to really be obnoxious and difficult, or find some kind of Scotch tape method of holding the class together in a terrible situation. And on top of that, you get no credit for this. You realize, no one when the end of year scores come out is going to say, "Oh, I remember. Yeah, the science teacher was out." Oh no, it won't matter. It's one of the ugly sides of school politics and numbers. Anybody else running anything good? I'll just come and roll.
We actually, building on what you just said, we had this same teacher was out 2 years ago for the same reason for the second part of the semester, and another intern was hired for that, had never had any experience teaching science. She had a chemistry degree but wasn't a teacher.
Oh Lord.
And I know our test scores, when we went to the county office to do our school improvement plan, you could see the dip. You could visually see like science scores and then boom. And for our school improvement plan, we had to include that improvement in the science, in the biology test, but we knew exactly what the reason was.
Oh, that's awful. And I can imagine someone majoring in chemistry, loved chemistry, suddenly stuck in front of a bunch of high schoolers whose love for chemistry is not quite so deep.
Nope.
What a nightmare. Yeah, so much for subject area knowledge and certification. Okay, any other exciting HR stories? Anybody know anything about benefits from your district?
I asked my principal about benefits, and he said that that's handled at the county and the state level. The county does the supplemental insurance for that, and then the state has all the state insurance. He also talked about how any supplements for pay came from local money.
Right. Right. So if we don't have enough EC teachers, we can't ever get EC teachers in here. We have to offer a bonus. That has to be from local state. Yeah, absolutely right. Oh, benefits. Well, while I'm giving advice tonight, I'll tell you all, if you don't have a 403B account, and if it's not full of money from saving ever since the day you started teaching, it's time to start one, and it's time to get really serious, because when you retire, you'll have an excellent retirement plan, but you'll want the extra money too. So let me just say, get one now, get it open, and put as much money as you possibly can put aside into it, so that when you retire, because you'll only be 52, 55 at the most of you, you're gonna want the extra funding, and it's absolutely a cash cow for state employees. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody promise?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it, you'll be sad. Okay. Who wants to do case study 2? What do I have to do? I have to stop share. Who wants to share with me
Well, how do you do it? What do you have to do? You have to
I
share it at the bottom?
Now, you should be able to press share at the bottom.
There's a green button that says share when you see the mute and stop video and all that stuff.
Okay, I'm horrible with this doggone thing, but I'll try. Oh, I had a hard time with
Possibly worse than me, so be proud.
Oh no, I had a hard time. Let me see. Now I gotta find, if I share it, where I gotta find it, don't I? Hold on. Okay, but when I share, hold on. Somebody else might
Pull
want
it up
to.
on your screen and then push the share button.
Oh, okay. So let me close out. Okay, I got you. Put it up on my screen. Now share it.
Okay.
Now can people see it?
Yep.
Oh,
Yay!
yeah. I get excited, honey, because I had a hard time with that Zoom thing. Boy.
Right, new learning is a wonderful thing.
Oh God, I finally got it. I'm not proud of myself. I ain't that's my husband. Okay. Well, here's our case study. Here's the Lindor versus State here. The case. So can you see? I can't see you. Hold on. Can I make it big?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Okay, so the information about the case was in 1994. There was a lawsuit that was filed against the state, and it had to do with North Carolina and the parents, the children, and the school district, and the 5 low-wealth rural district counties: Halifax, Robeson, Vance, and Cumberland. And the heart of the plaintiff case was that the argument that the quality of the child's education should be dependent upon the wealth of the family and the community into which they were born. Also, the state had done enough to the school funding across North Carolina, so the plaintiff proposed that a solution to have a higher level of federal funding for low-wealth counties. So I know Benicia had found some more information, but I'll let her share, but I didn't put it in the PowerPoint. But I can't see this. Hold on. I can't see everything I wrote. So how do I move you guys over so I can see the rest of my, oh, there we go. Never mind. I got it. So the results is that unanimously the court stated that neither the school district nor the counties had constitutional right to equal fundings. So in 1997, the North Carolina Supreme Court ruled that the children residing in the North Carolina have a fundamental state constitutional right to have the opportunity to receive a sound basic education. And they went on to explain what a sound basic education is, something sound and basic for all kids to have that. And the lasting impact from this case was that after the case schools started to provide funding to give all students on an education, also allowing for special programs to start being used in schools to teach the children that are had harder to give a sound-based education to. So that means that they were giving funding. They were starting to allow to give funding for the kids who maybe are at risk or needed some special needs. So the funding was being provided for them.
Okay.
So, and then I think, Phoenicia, do you want to share your point? But I didn't put it in about what you saw.
Well, this article that I pulled up from 2018 that said West Ed was a remedial study that was brought in by Judge Lee, and the judge ordered West Ed to complete its study and submit the final recommendations to parties in the court within the 12 months, and that was from October 2018 or by March 31st, 2019. So I guess it was brought up again in North Carolina, in Charlotte, Mecklenburg.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This came up while I was a principal, actually.
Oh, okay. But did they get a result from it or no?
No, my school was one of the low wealth schools of Charlotte Meck, and so we got picked out along with a few others to be fussed at by judges telling us how we had to do a better job. It was really effective. But anyway.
I think it's an ongoing thing about spending money and who needs to get the money and who gets more of the money, because we talked about that in our discussion with Zoom the other day. The team thoughts on the case study. Well, we did agree that superintendent's decision about the upcoming school budget plan was appropriate. Just some thoughts about it. We were saying that most times the low, where the rural areas where the kids are low area, poverty area, they don't get a lot of money. We all discussed that, like our schools, for example, we all were at schools where me and Phoenicia were at schools where you see the rundown buildings and different things going on. The children don't have the resources. I think Jay was at a school where they had a great PTO. So that funding was there and they had money. You see how they spent their money on technologies and different things. And Phoenicia was also saying that at her school, I think they had the old computers and everything. So when you are a low school with Title I, you don't get a lot. And Title I funding doesn't provide a lot of income or funding for your school. So sometimes you go without. We also were saying that there was a foundation laid during the previous school year, because in the reading of chapter 2, that's what they say, that's where it mostly starts. The foundation is laid in that previous year for the physical new year. So you take that information and decide upon what worked, what didn't work, and blah, blah, blah. Also, the budget plan process is based on the decision with the principals bringing information on their concerns. So this was pilot for 4 different schools. So it focuses on allocating the funds directly to those schools to assist with meeting those specific needs of the students. So that program was benefiting for the student-based budgeting. So we agree that it would meet the needs of the kids of whatever was needed to meet at that school. We also said Title I funding just not enough money to meet those specific needs of students, like risk schools are lacking the funds to help support their teachers for the students with specific needs. And then the superintendent involved the parents and the community so they will have knowledge of the funds that are utilized in schools and have an active role in assisting with making some decisions. The funds would be used, PTO or parents on the leadership team would have a part in that. And then they would know as well. The downside, I just quickly said that the superintendent budget plan might not be appropriate because it only focuses on 4 schools. So how do they know that these schools, just based off of a principal's concern, another principal could have another concern. So this principal got it. So that could cause rift in the community. I did put, and the parents, disagreeing with that these 4 schools are pilot. And sometimes when you pilot things, for example, they're not always great. It's just a plan that they put together. And I know it's got bumps and bruises, but when you come to funding, in chapter 2, that's really a plan. And there's different steps to that plan for funding. So that wasn't really mentioned, which you probably wouldn't be in the letter, but at the end of the day, just based off of a principal's concerns or issues that they had, It didn't say about data, but hopefully they did use data to come up with the ways of using that planner to best meet those student needs. That's it.
Thank you. But you concluded that it was appropriate the way the superintendent budgeted,
Yeah, we did.
but he would face some issues because he budgeted that way.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Who wants to do that?
So now I just stop share, right?
You stop share.
Okay, I did it. Oh, I'm right proud of myself. Okay.
Rebecca's night. Okay, who wants to go next?
We'll go next. I think Julie's she's driving and she's on a call. And I'm not sure if Carrie's here yet or not, but she had something else going on. But I'll try to give.
And I'm on the call. I actually just parked. I've been listening, but now I'm able to see, and so I can talk to you. This is Julie.
Okay. Can you see my screen now? Can everybody see my screen?
We can see you.
See me? Okay. I'm not good at this either. So
Okay.
let's see
You
what
can do it. If I could do it, you could do it.
I don't know.
Susan,
Share.
I can share it.
Okay, I think I've got it now. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Y'all made me
Yay.
feel so much better about myself. I can't.
Okay. So, Julie, do you want me to go first, or do you want to talk?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So, we had a lot of the same information as the first group that shared.
Sure.
Just basically it was a lawsuit that was filed against the state by North Carolina parents. The plaintiffs argued that even though the families in these areas were paying higher than average tax rates, they were ending up with lower than average tax revenues. Basically, families felt they did not have enough money to provide an equal education for their children. For example, they could not compete with wealthier school districts in terms of teacher pay, special services, or educational materials. So I don't want to read this kind of word for word for you, but basically the case today, I think Julie's, she's been doing a lot of sitting
Yeah.
in of the.
I can jump in on this part right here. So I sit on two commissions at the state that are studying Leandro and looking for solutions. I think one of the things that maybe was mentioned in the last group was that they were supposed to come up with some information and solutions by the end of the year, which is actually rolling up this March, but there's been an extension. So I've been working some with WestEd, which is the organization that actually works for the judge, as well as a little bit of work on the Governor's Leandro Commission that Governor Cooper put together. Both of these are working in tandem to try to come up with an action plan. So out of the 7 studies that were identified as issues dealing with the Leandro case, the 3 are most imperative and are the 3 that are being put forward that need to be fixed in order to be able to show that all students in North Carolina receive an equitable education. And those are in order: number 1, train certified teachers in every classroom; number 2, effective school leadership; and number 3, access. We need to look at how we are both attracting and preparing students, developing and attracting and preparing teachers, developing and supporting teachers, and then retaining and extending those teachers' careers. Looking at professional development opportunities and a career path. With effective school leadership, we're looking at how we're improving that leadership. A systematic approach for turnaround and improvement efforts that specifically allows school leadership to look at trauma-informed teaching, building in the community, and transforming school culture. And then obviously access to equitable resources for every student. That one's a little bit harder to gauge because as we talked about already today, really it's up to the county commissioners to be able to give extra resources per district. so lobbying the local government in order to be able to help assuage some of the resource costs can be an issue given local leadership.
Because tax base in those places is so poor.
Tax base is part of that. And then, your ability to attract businesses into the community who can assist with that tax base. Like, for instance, we are in Rutherford County, and there are certain businesses that will never come to Rutherford County just because of where we're located. Whereas on the other end, there are certain businesses that find our real estate and taxation an attraction. So we're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, but we've got some innovative leadership in district that are trying to help with that. Okay, do you want to move to the next slide?
So the superintendent's plan addresses all three main focus areas by giving autonomy to the schools based on needs. The leadership can determine resources necessary for each student or student group, not just based on district allocation. By allowing the school principal leadership to determine how funds are spent, the principal can build trust and autonomy did I say it right that time? Within the school district and community, thus building his or her own leadership. By allowing the school leadership to spend the money allocated based on needs, the school can attract high quality teachers to build classroom success for students. And so we looked at the pros and the barriers for each. The pro was allowing lower performing schools more funding for intervention programs. Flexible funding for schools based on need will help will advance student achievement. Site-based funding will allow for school leadership to grow, allows for objective measurable weights in determining how funds are allocated, attention to equity and funding resources to support. The barriers we noticed were higher performing schools receive less funding and could impact growth of gifted students. The law does not require equal funding or educational advantages in all school districts. Local supplements still impact funding for districts that is not accounted for in the legislation. What determines the measurables for equity, race, ethnicity, language, exceptional children, trauma, social emotional needs, achievement, poverty? How does the district assess equity of needs? And so that was basically what our group came up with and looked at for the case.
I mean, I would say overall, I think we agree that the superintendent's plan is a good plan and would address some of these needs. I just think given the brief amount of information that was in the case study, it would probably be good to have some more information to be able to flesh out some of these concerns in the barriers column.
Okay. So, but generally you would do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. And I think just being in a district where we could really benefit from that, but also witnessing some districts that do something similar to this, I think it would create a real possibility for growth in those lower performing or high needs schools in the district.
Does anybody want to be principal of those schools?
Which one?
Would I want to be principal of that school?
Yeah.
At the lower performance school?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be that principal.
Good. Okay. I just had to check.
Yeah, I would absolutely be that principal, especially if we were given some flexibility in funding and be able to look at some innovative ways that we could address some of those needs. I absolutely would be principal of that school.
Okay. That's good to hear. Okay, we have one more, right? Anybody else?
Yeah, it's us.
Okay, Lainey.
All right. Nikita, I'm going to share. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Share. Is that good? Everybody can see it?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we just did a summary of chapter 2, just saying, you know, how does the budget look? How does it work? Things, how do most public school systems get their money? We kind of went over a summary of case 2, what the superintendent had laid out in the note home to the parents. And when I reviewed the Leandro case, I kind of was curious on why did they call it or we were kind of curious on why did they call it the Leandro case? You know, who is Leandro? And I found out that it was a family from Hope County. They had moved there after the dad had retired out of the military from Fort Bragg. And they, you know, sorry, it's my dog's barking. They moved and they started noticing, you know, the kids were watching on the internet a lab of another kid's school doing a hands-on lab. And they, you know, felt that, you know, they weren't really having the fair opportunities as their other peers were. And one thing they said too was they had one activity bus per county. And I know I'm looking out in our parking lot and we have multiple, and that was just, the buildings were in bad shape and things like that. So that kind of what made them be one of the plaintiffs in the case. So that was kind of what I researched. That was kind of interesting to see, you know, where they were coming from this case. You know, it was just a personal perspective. So again, it's kind of the same thing. I'd put down, you know, just the one activity bus per county. Just in some urban schools were allowed to get intervened. So I'm assuming that's you, Dr. Robertson, when the city, you guys were allowed to intervene.
Yep.
And that sort of thing is saying that everybody has the children having the Leandro right of having a sound basic education. And what does it include? The 5 bullet points here. And it's still ongoing. And again, it's supposed to be at the end of the month with an ongoing case.
That's fascinating that they just, I did not realize it was still alive until I started getting ready for this class. Because that's been 10 years at least.
No, it's a 20-year-old case. It has been going on for 2 decades. And it wasn't until last year that really the new judge said, okay, we're done. We've got to figure out how to resolve this case. And you have 1 year to do it.
Wow.
Or what? That always seemed to be part of the problem is or what. Yeah,
right. So there's a lot of conversation about the or what right now and what's going to happen. You know, how do you shut down multiple schools across the state when the state school board is having a hard time shutting down one that's underperforming? So I don't really know what the or what is, but I know there's a real race to the finish. And because of the hurricane, the hurricane back in the fall, they had to extend the deadline because so many schools were out of school for so many weeks.
You guys, let me just throw a question out there. Does anybody think there's enough money to solve this problem anywhere?
No.
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 Yeah, I agree with you. I have an enormous. I have a friend who's the principal of an elementary school in Charlotte. Their first PTA, they do one of these. Write a check for the PTA. We won't have to have fundraisers or anything like that. $150,000 that night. Just boom. But as a Title I school, my Title I budget, the first year I was principal there, was $500,000. That's just the Title I. And we bought staff mostly, trying to cut down the teacher-student ratio. But it's bigger. It's bigger than $500,000. You guys have a real road ahead. One of the reasons I asked if anybody won that job was hoping that you'd all say yes. Because the joy of watching a kid learn, never learned before, and you know it's because of what you did. It wasn't because of where he was from or who his mom and dad were, or you know, you had all these advantages growing up. It's because of what you did in your classroom. It's fantastic, but it's not easy.
Mm-mm. It's not.
At all. I'll be interested to see how this turns out.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any final comments? Oh, we budget this way in Charlotte Neck, which is one of the 3 richest counties in the state. I think we're behind Wake and Orange now in school expenditures, but still it's probably way more than what most of you guys spend. But ours are divided by, or our low wealth schools get extra money from the state budget. And I think, just based on what I read in the news, it seems to me that it's actually made wealthier people happy to do it that way because they know there won't be some influx of poor kids into their schools as long as they keep tossing the dog a bone, for want of a better term, and throwing a little more money that way. Then they don't have to worry about busing coming back, which was another whole story. So politically, it's probably better to decide this as well as more appropriate for kids, not perfect for kids, but better for kids to budget this way, at least in my humble opinion. Okay. Anybody have anything they'd like to say to sum up, or thoughts on the matter, feelings?
I asked my principal about budgeting in the Leandra case, and that's when we kind of started talking about local money. And he said that, I asked him, well, how would they determine which school gets how much money inside the LEA? And he said that mostly all the money will go to human resources. So he said, once you hire the teachers you need, that determines, based on the number of students in need at that school, how many teachers, maybe like EC teachers, you would need. So if one school has 200 EC kids and one school has 3, that's where the money's going to go, to the staff to serve those kids.
Okay.
Which I thought was interesting.
Which is a plan that makes sense. I mean, the way I've always understood, the better student-teacher ratio you could get, as long as the teacher was competent, would give you the best chance of success. Certainly, that's the way I use my money. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything before we go? Okay, I hope everyone is hard to it on the skip. It's only got 4 parts and uses some past work, so do well with that. What was the other thing? Oh, next week is the facilities walkthrough. We've been at the high end of budgeting tonight, and we'll move to the low end of what assistant principals do first, which is study, trying to make sure things are safe and work so well. So please make sure you do your walkthrough so that we can compare notes on our different schools and what we find. Okay?
Okay.
In the meantime, have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Good work, everyone. Thank you.